One of the songs Taehyung performed live yesterday was Frank Ocean's Self-Control. He not only played it but also sang it with his distinctive, nuanced voice. This choice didn't go unnoticed by those who closely follow his actions, as it's not the first time Tae has used this song in a meaningful way. In his September 27 post, titled "Boiled for 3 months, he shared photos and videos from his time in Los Angeles. For that post, he chose Self-Control as the background music. Taehyung had mentioned in a JUNGKOOK livestream that they were very happy there, that they felt free, and that they experienced moments many fans still remember. That period left marks that the fandom hasn't forgotten, especially those who follow Taehyung. Therefore, Tae's return to the same song in his livestream makes several details resonate in a simple yet powerful way. Taehyung has a very particular way of communicating. He doesn't need to explain every gesture for what he wants to convey to be clear. And when it comes to Taekook, that indirect yet precise way of communicating often draws attention. Although they may not be too obvious right now, the signs of their connection keep appearing, firm and constant. It's a bond that many perceive as strong, deep, and stable, even when they're not visible to the public. Something similar happens with the video filmed near the ocean, included in that post by Taehyung. For many people, it's hard to imagine that the person who filmed that moment was anyone other than JUNGKOOK. Not because there's direct confirmation, but because the consistency between the details, the timing, and the way they both share memories makes that possibility stand out naturally. Taekook's story has always been marked by signs and moments that, for those who have followed them for years, speak for themselves. They've gone through complex situations in periods where they can't be open about their relationship, but that doesn't diminish the idea that their bond remains strong. What they share seems to strengthen with time, even when they're not in the public eye. The message is simple: Taekook is still there, with its own rhythm, its own way of communicating, and a bond that remains strong despite the silence. People just need to observe the signs they themselves leave, without forcing or exaggerating them. Sometimes the answers are right where they've always been, in the details they share, in what they show without saying it directly, and in that characteristic way they both build their story away from the noise. Yesterday, many of us were eagerly awaiting Taehyung's livestream. It had been a while since he'd last appeared like this, and his return immediately drew attention. We also continue to miss JUNGKOOK, so seeing Taehyung go live made that absence feel a little lighter, as if an important part of what always accompanies Taehyung and JUNGKOOK had reappeared, even if only for a few minutes. Taehyung and JUNGKOOK's appearances often convey a particular sense of calm. For many fans, the natural dynamic between them has become a point of reference, a safe space that always plays in the background. When Taehyung started the live stream, that familiar atmosphere was felt again, even without JUNGKOOK present. Taehyung mentioned that he'd been busy these past few days, that he'd just finished a day of filming, and that he was still wearing his makeup. Even so, he looked relaxed. His presence on camera showcased that elegant and carefree image that distinguishes him. He sang a snippet of "It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas," naturally keeping the beat. Hearing him again after so long reminded us how much we miss his voice when he's not as active. He also mentioned that he'd been working on editing his Hawaii vlog, making it clear that he's had busy days but is still keeping in touch with his fans. His gestures, like that little twitch of his nose he does unconsciously, further emphasized the naturalness of the moment. He didn't need much to create a warm atmosphere. In just a few minutes, he conveyed the familiarity that many were longing for. Thanking him for his time is inevitable, because even with his tight schedule, he decided to connect, chat a bit, and share part of his day. These kinds of gestures often remind us why Taehyung and JUNGKOOK hold a special place in this community, even when they're not on screen together. Later, it was also revealed that Taehyung had been active, uploading photos and videos of his trip to Hawaii with Wooga. The images showed a peaceful atmosphere, moments of relaxation, and the kind of company that truly makes him feel at home. His closeness to Wooga has always been significant. They are people who support him unconditionally, who accompany him without seeking anything in return, and who have also shared important moments with JUNGKOOK over the years. Taehyung has once said that with them, all his walls crumble, a phrase that summarizes the trust that exists within that group. That same sense of security is also naturally related to the space where Taehyung and JUNGKOOK have built their own environment over the years. It doesn't take much to notice how they both fit within that close circle that makes them feel protected and at peace. Seeing Taehyung like this, surrounded by his people, relaxed and sharing small parts of his life, made it clear that he is in a good place and that he continues to nurture the connection with his fans. And while JUNGKOOK remains absent, these details allow that presence that so many associate with Taekook to stay alive, even when he doesn't appear directly. Their individual and shared history remains a stable point of reference for those who have followed them for years. What's truly strange within the fandom itself is how easily some people make distinctions that don't make much sense. The same gesture, the same look, or the same way of behaving receives completely opposite reactions depending on who does it. When it comes from Taehyung or JUNGKOOK, it seems like an alarm bell immediately goes off. It's judged, questioned, or interpreted as something out of place. But curiously, if the same behavior comes from Jimin, then everything changes. Suddenly it's accepted, applauded, and even considered normal. This obvious difference makes you wonder if everyone is observing the same scene or if they're simply letting their personal preferences decide what's right and wrong. It's not about comparing the boys to each other, nor about fueling rivalries within the fandom. The important thing is to recognize that they've all shown similar attitudes at different times. The only thing that changes is the public's reaction, often influenced by what each person wants to see and by the preconceived notions they already have. When talking about Taekook, the key isn't to exaggerate every move or turn every coincidence into proof. The central message is simpler and more direct. Taehyung and JUNGKOOK are still present in each other's lives. Their dynamic has its own rhythm, a particular way of communicating that doesn't need external noise to exist. Although some believe that silence or a lack of public appearances signifies distance, the reality is that they continue to leave constant, small but clear signs that show their bond remains strong. These details aren't usually scandalous or attention-seeking. Rather, they appear in everyday moments, a specific way of looking at each other, a spontaneous reaction, or gestures that only those who have followed them for years recognize as part of their usual way of interacting. For many Taekook fans, these signs don't need embellishment or complicated explanations. They're there, visible to anyone who wants to observe them without prejudice or favoritism. The new sign that recently emerged only reinforces something many already suspected. Taehyung and JUNGKOOK continue to have a constant connection. It's not about grand public displays or trying to convince anyone. They simply continue sharing important moments, even if most people can't see them directly. Their way of showing that closeness is discreet, but evident to those who have followed their story over time. They have built a dynamic that doesn't depend on external validation. They move forward in their own way, without needing to explain every action or justify every coincidence. For those who already know how they both express themselves, their behavior is consistent, reserved, natural, and very much their own. And once again, the way this new sign emerged maintains that same style. It wasn't loud, it wasn't exaggerated, but it was clear enough for those who pay attention. Ultimately, the conclusion is straightforward. There's no need to force interpretations or fall into comparisons. The answers lie in the details they themselves show, in those moments that seem simple but end up saying more than any explicit statement. Taekook continues on its path, maintaining a relationship that evolves away from the noise, but visible enough for those who know how to read what they have always shared.